Going live.
Got it. Live from the Plutopia News Network, this is the Plutopia Happy Hour, and it's just us folk. And you see all the folk on your screen there. I'm Scoop Sweeney, that's Screamish Joy, and John Lebkowski and Susie Sheeler, and we're all here to tell you how tense we are over current events. How tense are we, kids? Everyone raise your hand. Tense.
Tense?
Tense over what's going on in politics? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Producer is going to ask us, let's all take a deep breath. Let that tension go. There's so much.
The debt ceiling is a little, I dislike Manchin and cinema. I saw this thing today that said, love the sin, hate the cinema.
Sounds like a pastry mansion in cinema with a little.
Ooh, that could be a band. Mansion and cinema. It's like
the thing about Kristen Cinema is that she's pissing off her base, and that's kind of irrational. You know, to try to guarantee that you won't be reelected.
She's there. I think she might have been a pawn in all of this, and this is exactly what she's supposed to be doing for whomever she is working.
She's a Trump mole.
Yeah, and she doesn't care. I have no idea, Gates.
And no one knows what Manchin's working for other than himself.
Manchin working for Manchin.
Manchin is in a tough spot, though. He is in a state where, he's got a lot of Trump supporters as constituents. So it's hard for him to move as far to the left as we might like him to.
But they did not elect him.
Actually, some of them did elect him. Some people who may have voted for Trump also voted for Manchin. Think about it. There were people who voted for Manchin and Trump.
So now he wants to. It just seems
he's listening to his constituents, I believe.
There's a lot of those in Texas too. We have some of the folks here that are dinos, Democrats in name only.
Oh yeah, for sure. Lucio comes to mind almost immediately.
Yeah,
it's sausage. We're looking at the sausage factory, and we get really up close when things like this are happening, like this debt ceiling thing, like trying to figure out how much money to spend and where to spend it. There's all kinds of maneuvering going on, and you have everybody in Congress has an idea about what they think should happen. Everybody in the Senate has an idea about what they think should happen. And regardless of their ideas, they also have their constituents telling them what they think should happen. So they're getting different inputs from there. So you have, and this is the Democratic way, you have a lot of different people who want a lot of different things. And it's real hard to get everybody marching in the same direction.
But what did he run on? Did he run on this kind of crap, or did he run on a more liberal, progressive ticket? I
don't think he ran I think he ran as a conservative, right centrist Democrat.
Moderate. Yeah, he did. He definitely ran on it as a moderate.
He actually said those words today that he has never been a liberal. He's never thought anything liberal. He's a Democrat. Right in front of the media. So there are no.
He's not. He's not a liberal Democrat, and he's not going to be aligned with the squad.
We've got to do some vetting.
This continues.
He got voted in.
To bring why I believe we need more than two parties, because functionally we have people that are representing themselves, and they are not. The minute Ted Cruz got voted into office, the Tea Party should have been sanctioned as an official party, and he should have been forced to call himself a Tea Partier instead of a Republican. And that's just the way I believe. And I believe the Trumpers, they should form their own party. I believe Republicans should reclaim their party or start something else.
He should also
but to-
claim Canadianship instead of American citizenship.
I don't think we need. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He said he was a Tea Partier. He rarely said that he was a Republican. He was there for the Tea Party agenda. And
Absolutely.
That
He was their voice. He was their poster boy. It should have been required. And it's the Republicans that allowed that to happen, but it's also the system, because it's much easier to play one side against the other and to get what you want done than it is when you've got actual accountability happening from multiple directions. Because
I mean,
we don't need go ahead.
No, I was just saying we have kind of a binary system, one or the other, and there's all kinds of shades of gray in there. And as you say, having a two-party system is a problem, but the U.S. political system was set up for there to be two major parties, kind of the way that it works. They have a winner-take-all method. It's the way that we do our voting. If we had a parliamentary system, it would be different. And I don't know what it would take to get us there, but that would probably make a lot more sense, especially for a huge nation like the United States with so many different interests.
Yeah, every time some liberal made a proposal in Congress, in either of the houses, that might open up the gates for more political parties, suddenly you had bipartisan support for whatever the vote was against that idea, because neither party wants to have any competition. They never have and never will.
No, they don't, and they don't want accountability. But if let's say we had 9 parties, right? And we had a People's Party, whatever. We had like a Union Labor Party, whatever. I don't know. I'm not very political, and I actually suck at these conversations, y'all. But let's say we had 9 parties, and 5 or 6 of those parties would have to align on an issue to move something forward, instead of just this constant back and forth where we're really divided at 50-50 almost. And
in a parliamentary system where things are kind of ranked, but yeah, if you had 9 parties in the current winner-take-all system, you would have 2 major parties and 7 parties that don't amount to much. That's just kind of the way it's set up.
Basically what we kind of have.
We kind of have that, except we don't have that many parties that don't amount to much.
Except we don't have that many parties. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we have a system that disallows those parties to be truly active. And that's part of the problem. It's, we have a buy-in system. Come on, you got to pay to play. I mean, is a system that requires a lot of money to be a part of. And especially the higher up, it goes into the system. And the way that they structure, for example, just debates, like just the fact that we can't have a debate with like all representatives on stage, because if they don't have a certain percentage, of whatever, they can't literally physically be on the stage. I wouldn't mind seeing libertarians and Green Party people debate against Republicans and Democrats as well, just to have the debate conversation.
Well, it's kind of interesting to look at the different binaries here, because we also have the idea of liberal versus conservative, and we have the idea of like socialist versus fascist. And we have we have all these kinds of things in the U.S., and some become more prominent. Right now, I'll use the word far right because it sounds a little provocative to say fascists, but the far right has kind of hijacked the Republican Party, which was a party of conservatives, which were not, non-fascist conservatives. They sort of got edged out of the party. And that's been going on for a long time. Everybody thinks, well, not everybody thinks, but some people think Trump did that, but Trump didn't do that. He was a symptom and not a cause.
He took advantage of it.
Yeah. And so now what you've got is, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say his son literally said that CPAC should be called TPAC, Trump Political Action Committee, because it was his party now. So go with that, right?
Yeah, except that's kind of doubtful. Actually, Trump is losing traction. He's liable to fade. But this thing that was operating around Trump is not fading, and it has really advanced quite a bit.
I think
partly
he'll be the
because he was in a
nominee.
position to nominee for the next presidential
2024.
race.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debate about that. It's hard to say right now. I think that, I mean, he's an old guy. He might not even live that long. Who knows?
If he's alive and mildly competent, I would put money on the
Well,
fact
he
that
may
will
be
the nominee.
alive, but I think it's already clear that the mildly competent part is out the window.
I think that's
Exactly.
been known for a
Yeah, but-
long time. That was known before he got elected the first time. That's
No, I
not gonna
mean,
stop
so
anything.
Trump supposedly owns the Republican Party right now, but when you talk, supposedly when you talk to Republicans behind the scenes, they don't like him, and there's a lot of people who would challenge him. So it's kind of an unknown right now whether he could actually get another run realistically.
Wasn't that always true? I mean, every time I ever talked to anybody, even back in, nobody ever said they liked Trump. They said that he served their needs.
Well, Trump owns
right?
a particular base of people that it's useful for them to have access to, and they certainly don't want to alienate them. So they're not going to come around and say, well, we can't stand Trump. I mean, you keep wondering why Republicans don't repudiate him. They don't repudiate him because he has a cult, a fairly large cult at his disposal, and that gives him some
and he
power.
knows how to activate them.
Exactly, but
A lot of
I can also tell you that from what I'm sorry, Scoop. Go ahead.
No, a lot of the old school Republicans had cults. Richard Nixon had a hell of a cult, the silent majority. And as soon as he started falling on hard times, they jumped ship quickly. And the big thing on Trump is how many of the old school donors are going to stick with him. That, I mean, it's great that he's got a base, but the base doesn't give money like the big donor class does. And if they bail, well, you can wave to him goodbye and wish him well in retirement.
Yeah, well, here's what I think about Trump. I think that Trump, for one thing, has a not a good prognosis as far as his legal status is concerned, because there's a lot of cases being filed against him or being pulled together. Some of them are criminal and some of them are civil.
Exactly
all
why
kinds
he
of
wants
lawsuits.
to be president.
He's bleeding money into, he has to at least pay retainers. He may not continue to pay lawyers once they've worked through their retainer, but he has to at least pay to retain lawyers. And he gets worse and worse lawyers as he goes along because his reputation is that he won't continue paying, right? So they don't really want to work for him. So he's got all of that stuff going on. He's got people, there's a lot of people who don't like Trump. I was just reading a thing today where they talked to people who voted for Trump in 2016 and Biden in 2020. And those people had decided that Trump is terrible and that they said they didn't really feel good voting for Biden, but that they would vote for anybody but Trump.
Well,
So there's an
I'll
anybody
tell
but
you,
Trump set of people now starting to emerge.
when
And then there's, go ahead.
I was going to say when I knew that all was lost was when my mother said I'm sorry, Mom, if you're watching, but when she said that she was going to vote for him after the you grab him by the pussy tape. And because she was just like, oh my God, I can't believe he did this, and but the number one reason I think that she voted for him is that she deeply hated Hillary. And that is why I think a lot of white women voted for him, is because of this visceral hatred towards this woman.
Yeah, and Biden was able to beat Trump because he didn't have that kind of deck stacked against him. He didn't have so many people who hated him. And the Clintons were the Democrats didn't realize how negative her perception was, really. I think when they nominated her, it was probably a mistake.
I mean, the Clintons carry a lot of baggage, period. And Biden was pretty benign, honestly. He was like Uncle Joe, right? Like he he had a lot of compassionate elements. Frankly,
he's a mensch.
Yeah.
Anita
Yeah.
Hill. Anita
Yeah.
Hill, though.
No, I'm not.
The Democrats
I'm not a
history.
No, I know.
Biden fan.
I
I'm
know.
not a Biden fan, but I understand why he was so benign. I understand why it was easy to swallow, so to speak.
Yeah. He's vanilla. He's about as vanilla as
He
you
is
can.
exactly that.
Well,
He's
for
exactly that.
my thought was, and I wouldn't, he wouldn't have been my first choice, but my thought was that he was a pretty good choice as a transition away from Trump. My understanding at the time of the election was that Biden had said he was only going to want to run for one term and that he wasn't going to run again. Now I'm hearing that that was wrong, or people are telling me, well, no, he didn't really say that. Apparently he said it and then he didn't say it, both. Whatever the case, maybe he is thinking about running again, but I think it would be better if somebody else got elected the next time. One of our problems with either Trump or Biden that has nothing to do with their politics or policies or anything else is that they're both really old guys. And we don't really want to keep having really old guys, and we don't really want to keep having guys. We need to have a young woman as president. Probably not, not necessarily Kamala Harris, but some young woman. Maybe Stacey Abrams. She would make a good president.
Never going to happen.
Well,
Really? You don't think so?
No, I do not. Not in my lifetime. No, I don't.
that's not the bad problem with selecting candidates, because they always have been, just about every convention that I've watched, they had a really great contender. And it was usually a very progressive, smart person, always tilted toward the safe and easy, good old the Uncle Joe type, instead of the it's too bad Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, because he was likely to be a really good candidate, and they had nobody to replace him, so they just picked whoever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's true. They go with the safe route, and it's unfortunate. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say never in my lifetime, and maybe I'm slightly more optimistic and hopeful, but I understand the cynicism, because it's pretty frustrating that we've gone this far, and this is where we're at. We're 80-year-old white guy against 80-year-old white guy, and I'm just it almost doesn't make sense. It is literally illogical. Even just I don't know. I agree. I think that we need people that are more progressive and more involved, but I also think that we're talking about this like level way up here, and at our local level, that's really where we need to make the most shifts. Frankly, like I get like stressed out about the president, but I'm really stressed out about our governor. And then I bring all that, all of that filters down all the way to our local representation and who we have supporting us, and how active or involved are we and engaged at that level, because that's, to me, where we're really going to be able to have impact and make real shifts. And we've started to see, even bringing up, Stacey Abrams, and just the amount of impact she alone has had at a local level, just her as an individual, I don't think we focus on it enough. It's real defeatist to stay at that real high level all the time, because there's not a lot that we can do up there, but there's a lot we can do down here. And that's just maybe an opinion. I think that.
No, I agree with that, but we can also affect a change on the higher levels, especially state levels. Like, I know
Yes.
I have very strong opinions about our local government as well, but as far as the state, and then hopefully, or maybe first the feds, and then they notice what's going on in our state, because we march or something. Like, for example, is the women's march is this weekend, right?
It's Saturday morning from 9 a.m. till noon.
Nobody's going to comment on what I've shared.
I was looking at it.
I put it up because I think we should talk about Abbott, but no, we should talk about the Women's March first, and then Abbott, and then Costello.
Yes, the Women's March is Saturday at from 9 to 11, 9 to 11.
9 to noon.
9 to noon. And we start, where are they starting? They're starting at Republic. I can't remember where they're starting, but you can rally on the Capitol lawn, I'm sure. And probably look it up. You could probably look it up. There's this thing that I just found called Google, and it is a wealth of information.
Really? Will that tell you where it is? I mean, like,
yeah, it'll even
then
tell you.
maybe
Look
it's
at
at
that.
the Capitol, you know?
Yeah, look at that.
And we know who the hosts are going to be. They don't want to
That's
give their
right.
last names.
No, I wouldn't
their last
either.
names.
Yeah. How about hosting? You could take that number off.
Yeah.
Huh? 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Yeah. So, everybody, I don't know what the weather is going to be like. I heard it's going to rain. So that really
That won't keep them
sucks.
away.
No, but it won't.
Shouldn't, but it won't help.
It will not help. It will not help in any
it's
way.
also opening weekend for ACL, which I think is disappointing that that's happening at the same time as the march.
That means
Just
it's kind of a nightmare on the streets of Austen.
It just creates.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of crazy this
I
weekend.
don't know, you guys. I think that, for us, we had the Women's March and our rally that we did, the first rally I ever did. The Women's March was the next day, and we had a ton of people come to our march just because of that, because they were already in town.
Well, that makes sense, though, because they're all focused. But ACL kind of competes.
Well, yeah, but you've got a lot of folks who are going to be here from around Texas in the Capitol, so they may. I mean, it's only 2 hours, and it's early.
Maybe
Who's
that's why they did
playing?
it so early.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why they did it so early. Was to like preempt ACL.
There's got to be a sleep at the wheel, and I'm sure there are a lot of sleep at the wheel fans coming out.
Oh, they start playing at 9 a.m. Do they?
They're usually the opening act. I haven't looked at the lineup since I don't care. I'm not going.
Right. I'm not either. I'm
going to stay out here and hug my oak trees and chase the squirrels. That's
exactly what I'm going to do. Oh my God.
I'm not only not going, but I'm not going to be bothered by the fact that I'm not going, which is new for me.
I saw your post about that.
It really used to bother me if I was missing something like that, and now I just don't give a damn. I mean, who cares?
I went to the very first one, and I immediately disliked everything about it, and so I never went back.
Well, it's definitely. I mean, if you don't like crowds, it's not a good place to be. And
I'm not a big festival fan, so I don't. I've been to a few festivals in my youth, but ACL never. The only time I went to ACL was to see the Pixies because I.
Oh yeah, wasn't that a great show?
That was a great show.
I love that.
And I had fun. It was
I saw the Pixies twice. One was at the UT Student Union building, and the second time was at ACL. No, wait a minute. I might have seen them a third time in there somewhere. But yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, I started getting into cardiac arrest over missing shows when I stopped doing shows because I spent like 25 years as a production manager putting all these idiots on stage. It's like, let's go out to a damn concert. It's like, I still have tinnitus from just having to be backstage with these idiots. It's like, no.
I bet.
So who's the biggest person who's like the most, was it like the Stones or somebody that you did music for? Who's the biggest?
Last big concert by the Police when they were giving it up back in the 80s. So we put them on a big college campus in, of all places, Fresno, California.
How old were you, if you don't mind my asking? Were you like totally into this?
Old enough to know better. No, I was almost 40. So
wow.
He was 12 years old.
Yeah. But we also did ZZ Top at Mountain Air Music Festival. That was great. And that was a big pain in the ass because those guys were total idiots. No one at the band would talk to each other. They had their attorneys, and I had to have guys standing with attorneys, and they would go and do negotiations backstage.
And what band was this? I missed that.
Journey. Big waste of.
Well, I should have been gone. Remember that song? Knowing how.
Hey, Journey played at Lollapalooza this year, and we were watching that live stream, and they were actually pretty good. They've got this kind of younger, he's
Perry guy.
50-ish, lead singer now
Yeah, the
from the
Filipinos,
Philippines.
he
Mhm.
glue them together because
He's really good.
Steve
He's
Perry,
good. He's
Steve
got the sound.
his attorneys were the worst.
This guy sounds more like Steve Perry than Steve Perry does.
It's
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, he won a show in the Philippines. He won like a Philippines Got Talent show or whatever, like something like that, and that's how they discovered him. Like,
someone saw him on YouTube and said, "Oh, let's hire him."
yeah,
I mean, I got to tell you, I have a history of really hating Journey, and I actually enjoyed watching this show.
Wow. Well,
They've
they're
got
still better than Foreigner any day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of terrible bands to think about too.
There really are.
But
Who passed is good, right? Everybody was like, "Oh, they play their own instruments. They've got to be good." And you're like,
well, so we're talking about music now, and that's a good thing, and we should come back to it. But I still think we ought to talk about Bud Abbott or Greg Abbott, Bud Abbott too. Bud Abbott was a pretty good straight man, but Greg Abbott's a terrible straight man.
He's a
crooked man.
terrible man.
He's just a terrible man.
Well, his
man.
problem is that he's now suddenly very unpopular. His points are like dropping fast.
Well, he may be a
Yeah.
great man, but he's definitely a terrible gay man. So I mean, let's leave him with the straights.
So the question
wouldn't
is,
allow him.
who couldn't beat Abbott?
Who couldn't beat
smart
him?
money is probably on Matthew McConaughey because the polls say he is the only person who could beat Abbott right now.
I'll
But
vote
it's
for him.
not clear whether he would run. Nobody knows what his party is. Nobody knows what his politics are or his positions are.
I know that he is. He spoke at the March for Our Lives rally, so I know a little
So
bit.
we know a few things about his politics.
Yeah. So I mean,
I think his politics come through a lot of his actions.
I think so.
He kind of expresses his politics kind of in those ways. And he's I can't remember if I read it as a quote or if I read it as somebody speaking of him that he considered himself a centrist. And that was as much as he would say about it.
Yeah, I'm not
which is a
surprised to hear that.
A real safe thing to say. I mean, he does a lot of very social. He does a lot of good social work, and he's present. He's very present. In his
and
community.
he's smart. I mean, he went to
he's smart as
UT.
shit.
Yeah, I think that he would be a good candidate. Beto is talking about running, and right now the polling says that Beto couldn't win.
No.
And I think Beto's
Beto
stock has
should be
gone way
governor.
down.
I don't
I
think
think-
Beto should be governor.
Beto
I
needs
agree.
to run for senator once Cornyn decides he's not going to run anymore or something like that, because I think that's as far as he's going to go right now.
I want Beto and Roberto to go up against each other.
That would be great.
Oh, did you see that Matthew Dowd is running for lieutenant governor?
Really?
Yeah, so
I did
Mike
just see
Collier
that.
was already going to run again against Patrick.
Patrick,
But, but now Matthew Dowd is going to run too. And I like Matt Dowd. He's a nice guy.
I know
and
the
he's-
Colliers. I grew up with Mike's brother, and
well, I think
Jim
Mike
Collier.
Collier's really good too. Neither one of those guys would be bad, right?
Yeah, Jim Collier's brother. You remember him? We went
Yeah.
to school. He's
Yeah.
cool, man. He's a very smart guy. But of course, Matthew Dowd, you can't. I mean, there's nothing you can take away from him.
Well, he has real visibility, I guess. Some of the Democrats really don't like him because he was a Republican at one time. In fact, he's got an interesting history in that he was a Democrat, then he was a Republican, then he was an independent, and now he's a Democrat again.
Well, he that's he's
You know what? That right there just
Listen.
summarizes why I call myself a political
Buddy.
atheist. Okay, because
There you go. I mean, I kind of like that myself. I like to see somebody who hop around from party to party because they're pissed off at all of them.
Hey, Scoop, for some reason, I think we've got a delay with you because I can see that you're saying something, but it's not coming through quickly enough to.
A delay,
Yeah.
Sing something.
Sing, 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 wah, wah.
So if I'm going to say something, try to start saying something when I see, there you go. You're trying to talk and nothing's coming. There it is. Do y'all see that?
I just see his arm stretched out.
Well,
Did you hear him talk or just me?
Just you.
Uh-huh.
kind of ugly. Let's whoop.
That's not better.
Better?
I like that noise. That was a cool noise.
Yeah, that was not his feedback. I was messing with the controls. Well, that's kind of ugly. Sorry, folks.
Well,
was just
feedback
noticing-
to Pete Townsend of moderators.
I was like, Scoop is trying to talk, but I can't hear him.
Well,
aw.
But it's much better now. I mean, I now I don't know what you did, but
yeah, I removed the cloak of invisibility that Harry Potter gave me.
there you are.
It's only
I want that artifact so bad.
now the age of technology. I'm techno king in my neighborhood, but it's not getting me out of the neighborhood. Obviously,
We can talk
man.
about music again if you guys want to, because Scoop and I
Yeah.
have a radio show that we do every week.
Yeah, I see. There's a really cool T-shirt that Scoop is wearing.
That's
What is
our
that? What
Plutopia
is that?
T-shirt.
Yeah, where can
That's
we
our
get that?
merch. Well, you can get that from the website.
And what's the website?
It is plutopia.io.
after all this time, you haven't been to
It's-
homeworld.
I have. I'm letting the world know right now.
Yeah, I know. She's
These are-
being
Listening.
clever. See, there it is.
Right.
And you
She's
can see
being
up
clever.
there somewhere. I need to move this thing so I can show. If you click the thing that says merch,
Uh-huh.
then you see our
Look at that
merchandise.
Nice.
The
So
t-
tell-
good T-shirts. It's not those little cheesy things that fall apart after 2 washes. They do a good job.
good.
And we really should buy hundreds of those stickers and stick them all over town. You know
Do
what's missing though
that.
is our URL should be on all of that stuff.
yeah,
That's not.
Hmm.
because it's IO, and a lot of people don't know that.
This is
I
our
don't know that automatically.
website.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, give me some of those, and I'll slap them all over town. I got stuff I could slap them on in my own house.
See, we interview a lot of people.
I know you do.
And then we do these things every week.
I know it's a very cool it's a cool program.
We have a YouTube channel.
You know, that's something that I have been trying to talk some folks into that I'm working on a show with. Because and tell me what y'all think about this. Stephanie, I know you'll have an opinion. But as far as the podcast goes, we've got so many more people watching than we do listening.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like the YouTube channel.
So that's
Mhm.
happening with us too.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because we do
Yeah.
when we do a podcast interview. We also do we do it on Zoom, so we just do the video. We watch the video.
And
Yeah.
when you look at the stats, it's more people want to watch. That's what I'm finding. Is that, yeah?
We do get a lot of attention on YouTube. I haven't really checked to see whether it's more than. There's a lot of people who stream our podcast. There's a lot of people who watch the YouTube videos. And there are a lot of people who listen to the archives of our radio show on Mixcloud.
Okay.
I don't know how many people are actually showing up for the show when we do it, but there's a
Right.
lot
Mhm.
of
Going
Post-
back and listening.
post webcast. Yeah.
Well,
You don't really have to, have people listening live because no one understands live anymore because everything is on demand. If you want it, you can click somewhere and be able to experience it, and that's actually a good thing because
yes.
our show comes on at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, And if I wasn't there, having to be there, 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, I'd be somewhere else. I probably wouldn't listen to the damn radio.
Exactly. That's why people don't do the live streams that often. They'll do the pre-record and then edit everything and make it great. They rarely do live streams because it's so hard to think on your feet and stuff.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's just depends on what flow.
See, if you go to Mixcloud, you can, and the link is on plutopia.io. But if you go to Mixcloud, you can see our various shows. There's a bunch of them out there.
That's great. People don't miss out. Go see our stuff. This is we're for real. We're the realest deal you're going to find.
Well, the radio show is actually, it's so unusual. I mean, it's just Scoop and I playing what we really want to play. We don't have any constraints. We don't have anybody telling us what to play, and it's really eclectic. And I think that people would find it very entertaining if they would listen to it.
Yeah.
So, and some people do, and they're starting to show up, and we get more and more people listening.
That's fantastic.
And Screamish come on and sometime and do their some of their favorite songs. Because
I would love that.
13,000 songs in my music library, so I'm sure I've got at least a couple you like.
I'll bet.
He's even got Journey in his library, I'll bet. Right?
No, then I'm not doing it.
He's got Journey, please. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I would like to do that. But Plutopia offers a lot of different enjoyment and entertainment.
It's a full network. It's a full network of.
And we talk about so many cool things on this show. We talk about Buddhism and writing and witchcraft and queer stuff. And I mean, we talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about, one of my favorite guests we've had on was Tom Jennings. I would love to have him back on soon.
Tom is a great guy.
Yeah, I would love to have him come back.
Of interest. I mean, he has his Nash Rambler obsession.
Yes.
Well, I remember reading about Tom when I was still in the Bay Area, because he was starting a lot of the early queercore demonstrations and publication. He was involved in all of that. And when we finally met online, it was like, oh, you're that guy. We were at a lot of the same punk shows because I was a big punk and new wave fan back in those days. So
he's a cool dude. I like him. I mean, I like all of our guests. I really connected with him. And who else? We've had so many cool people on this show, and we're gonna just keep bringing more and more. And Stephanie, you have to.
It looks like we have a lot of cool people coming.
Yes, we do. We are where you want to be.
Yeah,
all times.
We had your cohort Thorn Dreyer on, and that was a lot of fun. Talking old radical days when we were all running from the Houston Red Squad.
And I believe Alice Embry will be coming on soon. Just an FYI, everyone, to talk about her new book, and some other things that we pro choice information and that sort of thing. She's really up on right now, and so she's passionate about that. So
that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll give her another couple weeks to respond. But we also like to tell stories here. We're storytellers. We like to spin a yarn. We like to spin a yarn here and there. Steve Russell was quite a storyteller.
Oh, that's right.
He was a poet and a journalist as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was great. That was awesome.
You need to let the listeners know why you mentioned Steve Russell, because it's kind of sad.
Steve Russell is he left us from this earth. I really don't know how to say these kinds of things.
He departed the mortal coil.
Okay. Yeah. And it was just it was on the 25th, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to miss him quite a bit. He was a hell of an activist and a hell of a human, and we will miss him greatly in Austen and the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a big spokesman for indigenous people, and especially for the Cherokee Nation, and having a family from up in that area, from the Choctaw Nation, we understand that he was a great voice for the Cherokee and for Native American rights.
And if you ever get a chance if you want to read any of his stuff, it's the majority of it you can find on the Rag Blog archives. What were you going to say, Steph?
Oh no, I was just, because he was a great storyteller, and you started with that and the idea of storytelling in our society. Even what we do here through podcasting is a form of storytelling, and I think our society has sort of started to embrace the ideal and the power of telling stories. And really the impact that they can have. And I myself personally, I've been going down a path of learning. I've been a writer for a long time in my own private secret life, and I started taking. I've always been really fascinated with fairy tales in particular, because they're fairy tales, historically. They're, the way they're presented to us now, which are very sort of these children's, tales, and they're, about princesses and fantasy and magical things. And all of that is a part of traditional fairy tales, but real traditional fairy tales were really a lot of times they were very political. They were very satirical. They were really trying to expose aspects of society that weren't easily exposed. And so, utilizing fairy tales can be really interesting ways to sort of elevate aspects of our culture, and just take a look at them. So anyway, it just,
what do y'all think the difference between a fairy tale and a myth are?
Well, fairy tales involve fairies, don't they?
Fairy tales are actually, they're like an actual very structured form of writing. There's something that's known as props structure, and he basically came up with 34 elements that will occur inside of a fairy tale.
Props?
And prop, Propps, I believe, is props is, and he's some old literary dude. He was a scholar of fairy tales. He was a scholar of fairy tales, and so he studied fairy tales from this is several 100 years ago, that he studied old fairy tales and kind of came up with this idea that specifically fairy tales, they have 34 elements that can happen in them. For example, there's typically a hero, there's typically a journey, there's there's typically a marriage, for example. All these things exist within the structure, and a fairy tale doesn't have to use all 34 of those things, but a fairy tale will have those elements in it. It will ultimately be. So a myth is something that is more sort of culturally generated. It's developed more organically. A lot of times myths are used to describe phenomena that people don't understand, or they're passed down in through generations and through families. Fairy tales are too, tales are too, but myths are more I'm losing the word. The structure of a fairy tale is done to take you through an intentional journey, so to speak, on a story, whereas a myth is more something that is developed organically and can come from lots of different, for example, the myth of the Tooth Fairy or something like that.
Oh no, I don't think that's. I wouldn't consider the Tooth Fairy a myth.
Okay.
But maybe I'm thinking like Greek mythology.
Greek
mythology,
mythology,
like a myth.
So,
Yeah.
Well,
like
what
a story of morality and that whole thing. It's how it seems to me that a myth is, like you said, a construct that we came up with to explain things, and then fairy tales are tiny myths within the myths that are supposed to teach us lessons.
what about an urban myth?
That would happen in a
Fair-
city.
And it would be more modern. It would be more modern. The thing
There's
with a
urban
fairy
myths
tale.
there's urban myths like the Hook Man, which
Yes.
universal. Everybody from that I've ever talked to about the Hook Man swears it happened in their hometown.
It happened in our hometown, Scoop.
Of course it did, but these other crazy people insist it was in their hometown.
Dude, it happened in our hometown.
It happened in Big Spring, Texas.
It happened
But they
everywhere. But that's it. It's one of those tales.
See, that's a tale or a legend. That's not a myth.
Well, it's an urban myth. It's considered an urban myth.
It becomes mythological. Like it does become over time. It does. Greek mythology is way, but like that's exactly what urban legends are. It's modern myth. It's literally because of it starts the same way in some way. It's either like designed to scare you, or it's just like myths like that or just when you're talking about like these tales of like my favorite one, drip drip jingle jingle. Like that's my favorite scary story that I remember being told when I was a kid. And it's the old couple, or like the young couple drives out to Lovers Lane, and they hear that there's like the murderer is like on the loose, and they run out of gas, and the boy like leaves.
The Hook
and
guy.
Like, no, it's drip.
No,
drip,
this is a
jingle,
different
jingle.
guy.
Oh, okay.
It's a Hook Man's cousin.
Because he's not supposed to let the girl's not supposed to let the boy, anybody in the car but the boyfriend, and she keeps hearing drip drip jingle jingle, and she looks up and she sees her boyfriend's head being held, and the killer's holding her keys. Jingle jingle, so it's drip drip jingle jingle. See, that's a myth, right? And it's to tell you it was a myth, and it's to tell you don't go out to Lover's Lane because bad things will happen to you.
That's
and
not
you
a
will
myth.
die.
That's not a myth, though. I don't consider that a myth. I think we may be getting into semantics, but that to me is not a myth. That's a Halloween tale. That's a campfire story. That's a story.
Well, think about it. People tell stories to make sense of the world, and people tell stories also to make nonsense of the world.
Yes,
They do.
right.
That is true. That is true. I agree with that.
That's right.
It's the mythology of the Minotaur. The half man, half bull.
Yeah.
That's a little far fetched, but there was.
Wasn't he the president recently?
Well, the Nephilim are far fetched.
Well,
and
my favorite current relooking at is the myth of Medusa, which has been really looked at a lot lately in terms of feminine power and what that really is about, and her ability to like turn men to stone so that they can no longer rape and assault her. And there's so many like elements to the Medusa story, and that she was beautiful, that she was cursed by a woman for being raped by her. Like all these horrible things, and it's like that myth is there to create fear. That's really fundamentally like what it existed for, was to create fear.
Sounds like it was a man who just wanted to make influential women seem scary. And it was probably based on a very influential woman who could a couple of things. And instead of giving them credit, it's like, oh, she's a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she did have snakes for hair.
It was a woman that made her a monster. And so really what it was pitting women against women. It was, one of the goddesses, one of the gods raped Medusa, and his goddess woman was angry, and she harmed Medusa. She didn't go back against the rapist. And so, ultimately, But then you could look at it and say, well, maybe she gave Medusa the ultimate protection so that it could never happen to her again. Because if a man ever tried to touch her, she would turn him to stone. So it's just an interesting story to look at it from a mythological perspective in terms of what it meant then versus how we look at these things today, you know, and especially as we look at the shifting of the patriarchy, I hope. And just, you know, these stories were, you know, in many ways created and told by men. So,
well, pretty much all of them, the majority
I
of
don't
them.
give
And
it
that's,
all of them. I know Anonymous was always a woman. I'm 100% certain of that.
well, I guess that is to say
I'm
history
I'm
is,
teasing.
mostly is right. I think Anonymous and I think there were a lot of women who had to write under that name. So,
Men's,
write under
names.
men's name. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you get that? I just sent you a picture of, maybe you can share it, John, of Caravaggio's Medusa. It is just exquisite. It's one of my favorites ever. Did you get it?
Oh, nice.
I got it. Let's see.
I just love this painter.
Let's see what's the quickest way to share it would be just this way.
Woohoo!
She looks really nice.
And she looks
Nice hair.
She doesn't look very happy.
she got
looks a
bad
little
head.
freaked out.
Yeah, that's that blood thing from having been decapitated. That's all.
I think that's what that is. Yeah.
Honestly, if you look at they rarely look happy. Very few decapitated heads look happy.
I know. I mean,
true.
it kind of bums you out, the whole thing of leaving your body.
Yeah.
It does.
I think there's
Well-
generally a look of shock. I think they captured it well.
Hey, you know, and this thing about storytelling, Scoop and I interviewed Stephanie Vale. That's actually a pen name, but she's a woman who is writing Jane Austen fan fiction.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, and it was really a pretty cool interview.
Yeah, that'll be our next podcast. You should listen because she was a trip.
So
Yeah.
do they listen? Does she write in the style of?
Yes,
Bronte,
I mean that's
or-
the whole
okay.
thing about, they call it JAF, Jane Austen fan fiction, and what it is you know, Jane Austen wrote half a dozen books, and a couple of them she may not have really finished, though they got published. They might not have been as ready to publish as she would have wanted them to be. So there's a limited amount of writing by her, and people who just love Jane Austen started writing fiction with her characters and in her style, and it's a whole thing, and it's kind of fascinating. And Jane Austen's kind of fascinating. I mean, I sat down and watched that long miniseries of Pride and Prejudice. I didn't have time to read the book, but I could do 6 hours to watch the miniseries, and I was really pretty taken with the whole thing. I mean, it's kind of a trippy story, and one of the things that struck me about it was that you've got all these people who are just sitting around and they don't have anything else to do but, you know, lots of drama and socializing and worrying about who's going to get married to whom and
Little
that sort of
Women,
thing.
all of them were like any Edith Wharton book, anything by Kate
Mhm.
Chopin. It was always the same. Any of the writers, I mean, the typical, you know, Virginia Woolf, and that's when it really started to come out as, you know, clearly frustrated.
There's a Jane Austen murder mystery series, and there's a book called Pride and Premeditation.
There's also Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
I know, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I just,
You know,
there's some really crazy titles out here.
the whole fan fiction thing is really a trouble. There's, if you've ever read any of the Star Trek or Star Wars fan fiction, it's just over the edge. I'm just wondering if there are any like Donald Trump fan fiction out there. He wrote some books. I'm kind of some Donald Trump fan fiction, of course, and driving the whole car over the cliff using his.
Yeah.
What?
Would that be like giving a speech with lies, sort of in the style
Oh
of
my
Donald
God!
Trump?
The first headline that I come up with is
We'll tell the
Trump fan
truth.
fiction is a thing, and it's horrifying. That's the first headline. So yeah, it's a thing. It's a real thing. Horrific fan fiction gone wrong. That's how it's described.
What'd you say, Scoop?
Yeah, I said that sounds like Trump fan fiction to me. Definitely gone wrong.
Yeah.
Do they get
oh my
like
God.
published, the fan fiction? I mean, is that published? Can they sell that to a
Mostly,
screenwriter? I'm sorry, Scoop.
mostly self-published.
Okay, and so do
Yeah.
they get picked up for scripts or anything? Is that sort of the idea? Wow, that is fun.
Well, I mean,
That's-
fan fiction. That's how how was it? Twilight or one of those major series started out as a fan fiction novelist. I can't remember
wow.
if it was. Yeah, I can't remember if it was Twilight, if it was her specifically, but one of the major, like
Vampire
Hunger Games,
movies.
Twilight, one of them, they started off as a fan fiction novelist. Yeah, and
Wow. That's crazy.
like
That is
yeah,
crazy.
I'm sure I can see the horrifying.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
What do you?
Oh, she's trying to share a screen. I think she needs to send it to
Can
you.
you
or
share?
No, I didn't share. I just
Oh.
shared. No, I don't want to share. I don't want to share.
Oh, okay.
I was just sending y'all the link to the article on Trump fan fiction is a thing in case y'all
I
wanted to go
see.
deeper
I
on that
see.
on your own. Yeah.
Oh,
And that's
Oh.
on, you can find that on the boldatalic.com, a Trump fan fiction, that you can find that article there. Which,
yeah. I know you may
Apparently-
not be sharing it, but I certainly can.
yeah, there you
This
go.
is very disturbing. This is very disturbing. I keep seeing very
Oh, Trump
disturbing
and My
things.
Little Pony, of course. An
Yes.
idea whose time has come.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, my
In
gosh.
pursuit of the Obamas. Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
These
Schuffstaffel.
are-
Oh God. The fuck is wrong
You'll
with
never
this?
take me alive, Barack yelled defiantly.
Yes, it's looking very strange. It's right up
I
my.
told you, it's as crazy as you would expect. I don't know why you
Wow.
would expect
Hey, Stephanie, I
anything.
see your tarot cards behind you. Maybe you can do a reading for us the next time we have time we have no guests or whatever. That would be kind of fun.
I would be happy to do that. I do have my tarot with me, and yeah.
And you can do it
I'd be
over
happy to.
Zoom. You can do it
Yeah,
over Zoom.
absolutely.
Oh, how cool. That would be so
I do.
fun.
I do tarot. I'll draw cards for each of y'all next time, and we'll see what energy you have with you. I don't do predictive readings. This is
No.
important to know.
No.
I do. I'm a pragmatic reader.
You're
Very
not a
pragmatic
fortune
tarot.
teller. You're a tarot
No.
reader.
Yeah, I
It's
don't think
different.
Taro's about. I mean, reading the energy is the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very much an energetic reader. So
The energy,
but
such
yeah,
as it is.
Yeah, one of my
it works. It actually.
one of my favorite photos from the Bay Area was of a psychic's storefront in North Beach. It had, palms read, fortune told, out of business. You think everyone would say, "Do you think they would have known?"
You think they would have known?
Fortune's told.
How did you miss it? Something that important.
That may explain why they're out of business there.
I mean, if I know you really well and I've known your decision-making process for quite some time, or like a politician, I've seen that person do the same thing over and over. I can predict that you will probably do that same thing, but only if I've seen everything else you've done. I can't just guess.
Yeah.
But I can sue all of you for thinking about abortion. And all of you just thought about it because I said the word.
Okay, well, come on down.
I didn't know that you could sue us for thinking about it. Is it a thought crime?
Yes, it is actually. If you're thinking about doing something, then you can just considering it's conspiracy.
Well, it's a good thing tacos aren't against the law because I was just thinking about that.
Ooh, want to get some tacos for
Well,
dinner.
my
Okay.
headline is pretty
Great.
convoluted here. And my lifeline's not too bad, I guess. Or wait a minute, is that
Good.
double line of life? I don't have a double line of life.
I do.
I'm in trouble.
What if you don't have any lines at
Where's the-
all?
Which
mean,
hand is it?
My hand is completely blank. No, I'm
You're looking at the wrong side, Stephanie.
damn it. Oh,
Oh no, we're almost out of time.
We have fun.
It was fun.
It was.
This was one of
Always
the
fun.
better ones.
And who do we have on next week?
Schultz.
All right, Tracy Schultz.
Tracy
coming up
Schultz.
next week. He's the guy. He's a producer for Rag Radio. He's been on KUT several times. He has his own show, a couple of shows actually, and that'll be fun to talk to him about.
Very good.
Right on.
Yeah.
And here we are. And everything is going off here.
As I always say, your muffin's ready, John. You better get it out of the oven.
All right.
aw.
Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Scoop, can you meet me
Yeah.
back here in about 5 minutes?
I certainly can.
Okay. And for now, I will be dropping off.